Today we're talking about sweet potatoes, and you can see we've had a couple cold nights here in Virginia. Hasn't quite frosted, but enough to really put a dent in these sweet potato plants. These were planted from slips that we got at Peninsula Feed and Seed here in Yorktown. Highly recommend it. They did great. We started with 4 little tiny slips, and you can see these things took over like weeds. I mean, they just went crazy. So we're going to dig these up now that they're into their prime. They've had plenty of time since early summer to really grow some nice sweet potatoes, and we'll see what we come up with. We're going to try to take these and turn them into some sweet potato chips. All right, so we're here and we're pulling up sweet potatoes. I got a helper with me today. Got Jackson out here pulling sweet potatoes, and we're just going to start by slowly just pulling these up. And as you pull them up, some of them are going to get left behind. We're going to dig through and see if we can find them. If we do, but we're going to roll this back, and you don't have to be real delicate here. These potatoes are pretty tough. So I see a couple coming out right now. That one's split. It actually was a little waited too long on that one, so we'll check that one out, rinse it off, see what it looks like.
That's pretty good.
What you got there, Jackson?
I got a sweet potato I found right in there. Right there.
Awesome. So we're gonna add it to our pile right here, and we're gonna continue to do this. Just pull all these out and see what we're working with. Once you've removed your plant, you want to dig through this soil. Don't be afraid to get your hands wet, because as you see, there's still a lot of potatoes in here. There's another one, and you just sift through that soil, make sure that you got all your potatoes out of there, and make sure you don't leave any behind. All right, dig right down in there, Jackson. See if you can pull any out of there.
Ooh, I got one.
Oh, see another one down in there. There's a little tiny guy. We'll see what we can do with that. I don't think that's a great one. Oh, there's a big one. See if you can reach down there and get that big one.
Whoa, that's a nice one. And we got another one right there.
Wow, we're getting quite the pile of sweet potatoes here. And this is all coming out of a 2-foot by 2-foot square so far. So we've got quite, you're standing in the sunlight there, Jackson. So you can see these all came out of a 2-by-2 square. So this is pretty productive. So we've pulled all the sweet potatoes out, all the plants at least. And we've sifted through this first 2-by-2 square. This is some great soil. This is gonna be awesome. We might do some winter cropping this just to keep something going in here. But so out of this 2-by-2 square, we got that whole pile right there. What do you think, Jackson? Is that good?
That's pretty good for just the 2-by-2 square. I think we just grew like the most sweet potatoes ever. So this one I found that was like right in between like here next to the fence.
Okay. Right
there.
So Jackson, how do you think we did?
I think we did great, because I feel like the one that I found is really decent.
That's a solid sweet potato. Hold that thing up. Let's see what we're looking at here. All right, and we ended up with, how many did we end up with? Maybe 2 dozen?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 21 sweet potatoes.
25. You're at 24 to add one more. 25. All right. So, and we got all those out of this little cube right here. So we had a couple over there, but not much. That soil was more compact. So just if you're going to grow these, you want a very broke up loose soil. You don't want a real packed soil. They seem to get bigger in that looser soil. So that's what we're working with. We got a pile of sweet potatoes,
tons of this,
and I think we're gonna probably plant something else here. Maybe some might do some collard greens, something like that, something that's winter tolerant. So anyway, that's our harvest for sweet potatoes. Next year when you see them in the store, don't pass them by. Pick some sweet potato sprouts up and plant them in the ground. End up with a whole bunch of free sweet potatoes. All right, so what's our next step, Jackson?
So you have to water some more sweet potatoes. So turn the water back on.
Once you've harvested these things, you want to bring them inside and just wash all the extra dirt off of them. And that way you don't get dirt everywhere when you're trying to cook them. It doesn't get grit in your food. Just doesn't make things messy. So good to always give them a good wash right when you pull them out. So we've got all these sweet potatoes here all washed up and ready to go. Most of them are going to go in the refrigerator. I think we might try to make a sweet potato pie. I'm just going to look up some recipes and figure out what to make with them. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take a couple of them and chop them up for some sweet potato chips, which are really easy to make. So we're going to take them and thin slice them and throw them in this bowl and follow the steps as accordingly. And stay tuned. All right, so we're thin slicing these things. As you can see, very thin. The thinner the better. You don't want real meaty ones because they'll be kind of either crispy in the middle and uncooked, or they'll be soggy because their outside gets crispy too quick and the inside's just not quite there. So try to make them wafer thin if you can.
Here's my dad chopping some more sweet potatoes. You can see we've already chopped like probably about 3 sweet potatoes.
We're actually on our second. We just finished chopping up 2 medium-sized sweet potatoes, and as you can see, you get a lot of sweet potato chips out of a couple sweet potatoes. So you can also do this with store-bought sweet potatoes. There's nothing special about the ones I grew other than they're 100% organic and grown right here at home. And potatoes aren't expensive anyway, but it's just something about growing them yourself that is kind of cool. And getting to show all this to Jackson and teach him about gardening at the same time is a win-win for me. So that's what we're all about, teaching these kids. So maybe he'll make sweet potato chips for his kids when he grows up. Once you got all your chips cut, you just want to soak these in some water for an hour or 2. And you don't have to. You can take them and straight put them in the fryer. But if you soak them, it'll actually pull a lot of the starch out. So it's good to soak them. Even if it's regular potatoes and you're making french fries. Always was taught you want to soak them for a few hours to get that starch out of them. Just makes them a crispier, less mushy potato. So good step. We're going to put water in this bowl and we're going to set them in the fridge for a couple hours. This is our sweet potato chips. We soaked them for 2 hours. Now we're going to just drain this water out. And it's important that you make sure you get all that water out because 1, air fryers don't like water. 2, oil and water don't mix. So if they're all soaking wet, then you know, they're not going to hold as much of the whatever you use. Well, I'm using duck fat in this case, but you know, we want to make sure these are pretty dry. So I'm gonna take a paper towel, kind of mop up some of that excess water. All right, so we got some pretty decently dry sweet potato chips. And we're gonna take, in my case, duck fat, but you can use butter, olive oil. This stuff right here is just really good for you compared to, say, vegetable oil or something like that. So I like cooking with it. You just drizzle that on. And a little bit goes a long ways. You saw that was just a dash. And then you just work that in here. Get everything nice and oiled up. Make sure you separate them because they like to stick together. You know, they're a bunch of thin sliced potatoes. So really hard to get them to not stick together. So you want to make sure you get them all nice and oiled. And then the next step is go ahead and put them in the air fryer. All right, next up. Take your air fryer, grab your basket, and we're just going to dump all these chips in there. little tossy toss. Slide them in the air fryer. And we're going to do these for a total of 14 minutes on 350. And let it go. And every 3 minutes or so, pull your basket out, give it a good toss just to keep them all separated, and see how these things turn out. So we got our finished chips here. As you can see, these things turned out looking great. Which wants a little bit of brown on the edge like that, so you know they're going to be crispy. Ended up being 15 minutes on 350, followed by 8 minutes on 400. And that might vary based on your air fryer, but that's what worked for me. Should be close. The main thing is just make sure you shake them up each time so you don't have a bunch that aren't done in the middle. But this is it. I usually just salt them to taste, and you're good to go. Kids love them. Adults love them. Everybody loves them. Eat them up.